The top personalities in Hollywood had some major issues with the man who made I Pity the Fool famous. Mr. T never backs down from anything, from violent altercations on the A-Team set to financial conflicts with cinema icons. He was said to as the worst actor ever by which co-star? And during filming, who attempted to shove him around? I strive to accomplish two things as an actor, as I tell everyone. In addition to trying to entertain, I also strive to convey a message. Prepare to learn about the actual disputes that turned Mr. T into one of the most dreaded figures in Hollywood. Peppard, George. George Peppard believed he was the unquestioned star when he arrived on the A-Team set. He had extensive cinematic credits, including Breakfast at Tiffany's with Audrey Hepburn, decades of expertise, and classical training. He saw himself as a serious theatrical actor who was only doing television because he needed the money. He was smart and well-groomed. Peppard was supposed to be the obvious leader on and off screen when the show debuted in 1983. He did, after all, portray Colonel John Hannibal Smith, the team's operations mastermind. However, an unforeseen circumstance occurred that altered everything. The smooth leader persona of Peppard failed to captivate audiences in the same manner that Mr. T's B.A. Baracus did. Everywhere, children began donning mohawks and gold chains. On schoolyards, they recited Mr. T's catchphrases. B.A. was featured on the show's merchandise. Baracus overshadows all other characters. The A-Team's breakout star was Mr. T. And Peppard was completely enraged by that fact. Initially mild, the stress developed into something far more significant. During breaks, Peppard would poke fun at Mr. T's acting skills in front of the crew. When Mr. T would say his famous words during takes, he would roll his eyes. He began arriving late to sequences where Mr. T was a major character, stating that he had other professional obligations or schedule conflicts that took precedence. In order to reflect his popularity with viewers and his worth to the show, Mr. T's reps requested a significant raise when contract negotiations for the second season arose. Without any discussion, the network bosses gave him a salary that was actually greater than Peppard's. Peppard became extremely enraged upon learning about this pay disparity. Here was a rookie earning more money than an experienced professional like himself, despite having no formal acting training, no drama school education, and no industry connections. Peppard began to express his emotions to anyone who would listen. In interviews, he publicly questioned Mr. T's acting prowess. It implied that the ensemble was suffering because the show was concentrating too much on one individual. Crew members who saw the incident said that Mr. T had obtained an entertainment magazine that included numerous comments from Peppard. Peppard claimed in those quotes that Mr. T was not a legitimate actor and that he was the show's poorest performer, hence degrading the production's quality. Mr. T did not take criticism well or tactfully. With the magazine in his hand, he marched directly to Peppard's trailer, his face displaying the kind of rage that caused everyone to move aside. Everyone who worked on the show considered what transpired next to be legendary, and it was discussed for years afterward. Mr. T read the derogatory statements aloud in his loud voice while he stood outside Peppard's trailer, ensuring that everyone on the set could hear the precise words that were spoken against him. Instead of hiding behind magazine interviews and anonymous complaints to media, he insisted that Peppard come out of his trailer and explain himself in person like a man. Peppard wouldn't leave the house. Mr. T called him out in front of the entire cast and crew, but he remained locked in his trailer. For someone with Peppard's level of experience and stature, it was humiliating, but it also made everyone aware of the power dynamics. No matter how well known they were or how long they had been in the industry, Mr. T was not going to be bullied. The two guys hardly spoke to one another after that day unless they were forced to do so by the cameras. Together, they would film their scenes with icy professional efficiency, delivering their lines and hitting their targets. However, they moved to opposing sides of the set like magnets, repelling one another as soon as the director pressed the cut button. Over the course of its 5-season existence, the A-Team maintained its enormous success in spite of all the personal hostility and behind-the-scenes drama. Mr. T became well-known worldwide and one of the most identifiable figures in entertainment thanks to the show. However, it also served as a sad reminder to those involved in the production that even the most successful enterprises can be tainted by professional jealousy and wounded egos. Stallone, Sylvester. Sylvester Stallone and Mr. T's friendship began with a humorous turn that neither man could have foreseen. They had an encounter years before Rocky III made them both famous, and it laid the groundwork for all of their subsequent disputes. A determined visitor who wanted to meet heavyweight champion Leon Spinks walked up while Mr. T was serving as his bodyguard. The visitor introduced himself as Sylvester Stallone, claimed to have starred in the film Rocky, and stressed that he had to congratulate the new champion. Neither Sylvester Stallone nor Rocky were familiar to Mr. T. This was simply another person to him, attempting to talk his way out of security with a narrative. Thus, he carried out his paid duties. Stallone attempted to explain his identity and the significance of the meeting, but he refused, blocking the door. Mr. T, however, was still. He didn't have to worry about offending a stranger, his mission was to defend Leon Spinks. Stallone's insistence that he was someone significant heated up the discussion. With Mr. T said unequivocally that he didn't give a damn about this guy's identity. Stallone recalled his run-in with the frightening, unstoppable bodyguard years later when he was working on Rocky III. He required an opposition who appeared capable of harming the Italian horse in the ring and who could realistically threaten Rocky Balboa. More significantly, he needed someone who had that unique trait that gave viewers the impression that he was genuinely threatening. It seemed like the ideal fit when Stallone's people found Mr. T and offered him the position of Clubber Lang. However, nobody anticipated that Mr. T's journey from bodyguard to movie star would go as smoothly as it did. He lacked professional training, film set experience, and an awareness of the workings of the film industry. With military accuracy, Stallone had planned every move, every punch, and every camera position. In order for the battles to appear realistic and prevent anyone from suffering serious injuries, he required the performers to hit their spots precisely. Although Mr. T was aware of the safety regulations, he thought that some of the dance made Clubber Lang appear timid or weak. In the middle of a take during one especially demanding training session, Mr. T paused and sternly informed Stallone that Clubber would not act in such manner. Instead, he acted out what he believed the character would do by striking with a more aggressive stance and punching with a different rhythm. Although his ideas were sound from a character standpoint, they totally ruined Stallone's well-prepared choreography. Stallone was forced to choose between preserving control over his own film and honoring Mr. T's intuition. He was aware that one of the film's greatest strengths was Mr. T's genuine on-screen persona, but he also couldn't allow a rookie actor to take over the directorial duties. The ensuing discussion was professional and strained, as both men looked for a solution. More practice time and thorough talks about every scenario before the filming were the answers. Mr. T would provide recommendations for alternative reactions from Clubber while Stallone would outline his general plan for the scene. In order to determine whether method performed better in the editing room, they occasionally shot several takes of the same scene. Although the end product was better because to this cooperative procedure, production was held down and the film's budget was greatly raised. Mr. was receiving more input into his scenes than most rookie performers would ever anticipate, as other actors on the set observed. While some questioned whether the filmmaker was losing control of his own film, others saw it as Stallone recognizing true talent. As with the earlier Rocky movies, Stallone anticipated being the main subject of interviews and promotional activities. However, Mr. T's exaggerated personality captivated reporters and viewers. With his catchy words, which were already starting to become well-known, Mr. T's colorful answers to questions frequently overshadowed the parts of the interview that were meant to concentrate on Stallone's comeback as Rocky. Entertainment shows were interested in hearing Mr. T discuss his philosophy, background, and future battle predictions. As his adversary took center stage, Stallone was forced to the side to talk about technical aspects of the movie. For Stallone, who had dedicated years of his life to creating the Rocky character and starting the series from scratch, this change in media focus was extremely upsetting. It felt like he was losing control of his own invention when he saw his villain receive more media attention than the hero. Both men's approaches to the project were vindicated by Rocky III's enormous box office success, but it also created a lasting conflict in their relationship. Stallone discovered that, even when they make the filmmaking process more difficult, the most innovative ideas can occasionally emerge from unexpected places. Mr. T discovered that striking a balance between one's own vision and teamwork is necessary for success in Hollywood. A female co-star who believed she could alter the rules of the game would be the next source of contention. Kulea, Melinda. When the A-Team was being conceived for television, its creators realized they wanted to give their all-male group of misfits from the military some diversity. Early in the 1980s, television was still having trouble creating strong female characters, particularly in action series where traditional gender roles and macho themes predominated. Their answer was to cast Melinda Kulea as newspaper reporter Amy Amanda Allen, who would support the squad and offer an alternative viewpoint. Kulea had impressive acting qualifications when she arrived at the show. She had a lot of theater experience and classical training, and she had real dramatic ambitions outside of television. She did not view the A-Team as the pinnacle of her career, but rather as a springboard to bigger parts in serious drama and movies. Or her final performance destination. Kulea had serious issues about the way women were portrayed on the show and how her role was being written from the start. Amy, in her opinion, was far too frequently relegated to the role of the stereotypical female character who required saving or who acted mainly as the men's emotional support system. She preferred more complex plots, as well as increasing involvement in the team's real tasks. In the meantime, Mr. T was still getting used to the world of television production, learning the fundamentals of working with scripts, hitting his marks, and building rapport with his co-stars. He approached the task with simplicity and intuition. He concentrated on getting a B. By relying on his own experiences and personality instead of conventional acting techniques, Baracus feels genuine and real. Kulea's strident demands for revisions to her character and the show's scripts were the first sign of trouble. She would meet with writers and producers in between takes, attempting to persuade them to give Amy more significant storylines and a more active involvement in the team's activities. From the standpoint of storytelling, her recommendations were frequently sound. However, they ran afoul of the show's rigid production schedule and set formula. Mr. T couldn't figure out why Kulea appeared so dissatisfied with their collective accomplishment. Everyone involved in the A-Team was becoming more famous and wealthier than they could have ever imagined due to the show's true success. Practically speaking, he believed that everyone should be appreciative of the chance and concentrate on creating the greatest presentation they could given the constraints of the format, which was obviously effective with crowds. Everyone on the set was impacted by the obvious tension that resulted from their divergent approaches to the project. Filming would frequently be postponed while Kulea spent a lot of time with writers and producers discussing character development and screenplay revisions. Mr. T would rather concentrate on honing his own act and establishing strong working bonds with the crew members who enabled the performance. Her frequent script conversations and ideas started to seem more like whining to him than true creative cooperation. According to him, they had been presented with a fantastic opportunity that most actors would kill for, and it seemed unappreciative and ineffective to spend time griping about the little things rather than seeing the wider picture. The show's rigorous production schedule and the ongoing pressure to maintain high ratings in a cutthroat television market made matters even worse. There isn't much time for in-depth character development conversations or significant rewrites because television production happens so quickly. Filming was occasionally postponed while Kulea pushed for modifications to the script, or necessary last-minute changes that irritated all production participants. Usually, Mr. T's response to these delays was straightforward and unvarnished. He was a firm believer in arriving on time, performing the job correctly, and getting on to the next scene quickly and without needless difficulties. He would publicly and bluntly voice his anger when character development meetings or writing debates delayed production. The last episodes of the first season's filming were the tipping point. In a significant action scene that was essential to the episode's plot, Kulea had been arguing especially strongly for her character to play a larger and more active part. Instead than remaining securely on the sidelines while the men took care of all the actual action, she wanted Amy to be actively involved in the team's perilous task. In fact, the producers and writers were open to taking her advice into account and even implementing some of her concepts. However, the lengthy script modifications and time-consuming discussions forced the production timeline to its breaking point. Mr. T made scathing remarks about how some people couldn't simply be content with the amazing success they had been handed during one of these production delays. Although he didn't specifically name Kulea when he was complaining, everyone on the set was aware of who he was referring to and what circumstance had made him angry. Well-meaning crew workers promptly relayed his remarks to Kulea, who was offended and incensed at being labeled ungrateful when she was only attempting to make the program better. The ensuing altercation was neither an explosive blow-up nor a theatrical yelling match that halted manufacturing. Rather, it was a professional yet tense exchange in which both actors made their positions very evident to the audience as well as to each other. Kulea clarified that her sincere goal was to improve the program and provide chances for more varied and captivating narratives. Mr. T retorted that instead of attempting to solve imaginary issues, they ought to concentrate on what was obviously effective with audiences. Although neither of them was wholly incorrect in their viewpoints, it was impossible to establish any common ground or come to a satisfactory compromise because of their radically different approaches to the task. Carl Weathers contributed significant acting experience and fighting credentials to the Rocky film series. Before turning to acting, he was a professional football player. And he had established himself as a genuine action star with genuine physical ability thanks to his performance as Apollo Creed in the first two Rocky movies. At first, Weathers considered Mr. T to be just another celebrity stunt casting option when he joined Rocky III as Clubber Lang. The early boxing training sessions in the movie were where the friction between them began. Weathers had developed Apollo Creed's fighting style in close collaboration with expert boxing trainers and choreographers. He took pleasure in making his fight scenes appear genuine and credible to those who were familiar with boxing because he was aware of its technical features. Although Mr. T had no official boxing experience other than street fighting and overall physical fitness, he embraced the training with his usual enthusiasm. His fighting style was less about technical skill and footwork and more about intimidation and raw power. Weathers made it apparent that he didn't believe this strategy would be successful for a big-budget movie after observing Mr. T's training sessions. Based on his knowledge of the earlier Rocky movies, Weathers had ideas on how the fight scenes ought to be choreographed. He believed that in order for Mr. T's character to be credible as a significant danger to Rocky Balboa, he needed to use more advanced boxing techniques, who had previously encountered formidable foes such as Apollo Creed. Mr. T vehemently disagreed with this evaluation. He maintained that rather than having a refined boxing technique, Clubber Lang's strength stemmed from his street fighting experience and unadulterated fury. He believed that Clubber's authenticity and attraction to viewers who identified with his outsider status would be compromised if he became more technically skilled. When Weathers proposed that before filming the main fight scenes, Mr. T should practice with more boxing trainers to hone his technique, the argument got heated. Mr. T interpreted this as an outright affront to his physical prowess and self-awareness. He made it plain that he didn't require instruction from anyone on how to be scary or threatening. In response, Weathers said that the goal was to produce credible action scenes for a big-budget Hollywood production. He made the point that if the boxing was phony or badly choreographed, viewers would notice, which might damage the credibility of the entire movie. Technically speaking, his worries were valid, but they ran counter to Mr. T's more intuitive strategy. Because of their admiration for one another's athletic backgrounds and professional approach to the boxing choreography, Weathers and Sylvester Stallone had established a working friendship. He anticipated that Mr. T would adhere to the tried-and-true method that had been effective for the earlier movies. However, Mr. T had his own opinions about Clubber Lang's fighting style and movement. He occasionally added movements or emotions that felt more natural to him during takes, departing from the pre-arranged choreography. Although these improvisations frequently seemed well on camera, they interfered with the meticulously prepared move sequence that Weathers and Stallone had practiced. Weathers grew more and more irritated with Mr. T's apparent lack of professionalism in handling the technical requirements of filmmaking. He believed that by altering the choreography without first consulting the other actors who had to respond to his moves, Mr. T was acting selfishly. Everyone's safety hinged on precisely adhering to the pre-arranged procedures. Weathers' objections, in Mr. T's opinion, were an attempt to restrict his creative contribution and manage his performance. He believed that his innate instincts were being disregarded in favor of extremely technological methods that would detract from the authenticity and excitement of his persona for viewers. The dispute reflected a basic difference of opinion regarding the proper way to write action sequences. Although the movie's success somewhat supported both strategies, it didn't end the two stars' personal feud. Weathers kept up his reputation as a serious actor with genuine athletic credentials while working on the Rocky franchise. Mr. T proceeded with other endeavors. but never lost sight of what he perceived as Weathers' attempts to discredit his sincerity and his authority to define his own personality. When it came to handling Mr. T's intense personality, Dirk Benedict, even the kindest men in Hollywood had their limits. Dirk Benedict was known as one of Hollywood's most laid-back and professional performers when he joined the A-Team. His reputation as a dependable performer was cemented by his triumph on Battlestar Galactica. Who was equally adept at handling character development and action scenes. He was renowned for fostering a nice environment on set, avoiding confrontations, and getting along well with the actors and crew. Naturally, Benedict was put in charge of mediating disputes between his more erratic co-stars when the A-Team started filming. He made an effort to ease the mounting hostilities between Mr. T and the other cast members and later between Mr. T and George Peppard. For a while, his diplomatic strategy succeeded, but he soon became exhausted by the ongoing pressure of handling other people's disputes. Benedict and Mr. T had minor issues at first, but they eventually got worse. During filming, he observed that Mr. T was not afraid to voice his strong thoughts about how sequences should be played. Although Benedict valued innovative suggestions, he thought Mr. occasionally went too far in pushing for unnecessary modifications or ones that deviated from the show's natural flow. During the production of a second season episode that included lengthy scenes between their two characters, the first significant argument occurred. In order to demonstrate Face's development and sensitivity beneath his polished appearance, Benedict had collaborated with the writers to create a few nuanced character moments. For these passages to be successful, precise timing and a delicate touch were needed. According to Mr. T, these character moments detracted from the action scenes that viewers were most interested in seeing and dragged down the episode's pacing. He recommended that some of Benedict's scenes be shortened or removed to allow for more Baracus moments. From a business perspective, his recommendations weren't necessarily incorrect, but they weakened the character growth Benedict had laboriously developed. Benedict made an effort to manage the matter amicably by outlining the significance of these character moments for the long-term growth of the program and for sustaining viewer attention outside of action scenes. He made the point that in order to keep viewers interested from one season to the next, great shows needed both thrilling action and real character development. These arguments failed to persuade Mr. T. He believed that Benedict was overanalyzing the demands of the show and that viewers were primarily interested in thrilling action and endearing characters rather than nuanced dramatic moments that could be more appropriate for a different kind of program. The filming schedule was impacted by the discussion, which lasted for several days. Mr. T's remarks about certain actors being more concerned with their personal screen time than with creating the greatest show possible were the tipping point. Benedict had always taken pleasure in his ability to work well with others and prioritize the success of the program over his own interests. For someone who had invested a lot of time and effort into assisting his co-stars in collaborating successfully, being labeled as egotistical or selfish was very offensive. Benedict gave up attempting to resolve disputes between Mr. T and the other cast members after this altercation. He avoided getting involved in disputes that he was unable to settle in favor of concentrating on his own performance and scenes. His personal work on the program was actually enhanced by this shift in strategy, but it also resulted in a rise in hostilities amongst the other cast members as he was no longer there to provide stability. One of Hollywood's most renowned dramatic actors would provide the last conflict. James. When James Caan worked briefly with Mr. T on a television film project in the middle of the 1980s, he brought significant dramatic credentials and method acting training to the table. Caan was renowned for his rigorous preparation techniques and his capacity to fully inhabit roles via psychological and research preparation. His method of acting was entirely different from Mr. T's natural personality-based approach. In order to highlight each actor's abilities and create an intriguing contrast between their disparate backgrounds and acting styles, the production cast them as unexpected allies in a crime drama. Caan viewed the partnership as a chance to collaborate with someone who could add authenticity to action scenes and had real street cred. The initial script reading sessions were when the issue first arose. In order to prepare for his role, Caan had devoted weeks to creating a thorough backstory for his character and investigating comparable real-life circumstances. He anticipated that his co-star would approach the task with the same level of preparation and focus, but Mr. T's approach was far more direct and immediate. Without doing much research or preparation, Mr. T was prepared to begin filming after reading the script and comprehending the goals and motivations of his character. His strategy was to identify the genuine feelings that he had that corresponded with the character's experiences, then to naturally convey those feelings in front of the camera. Khan thought this strategy was unprofessional and annoying. He believed that Mr. T was not working hard enough to produce a genuinely captivating performance or taking the work seriously enough. He would offer several approaches to scenes and interpretations of the character's psychology throughout rehearsals. Mr. T stated that he understood his character quite well without needing to study every motivation or build intricate backstories. He believed Khan was trying to force his own acting techniques on someone who worked differently but just as successfully, and he was overcomplicating what should have been a simple performance. During the filming of dramatic passages that demanded tight collaboration between both actors, the anxiety increased. To get into character, Khan would employ method acting techniques. In order to preserve the emotional authenticity of his performance, he occasionally stays in character between takes. He anticipated that Mr. T would be just as dedicated and intense. Mr. T found Khan's approach unnatural and unneeded. When the cameras were rolling, he could access the necessary emotions without having to keep them up all day. He believed that Khan's method acting was less about improving performances for the audience and more about flaunting his expertise. When Khan made remarks regarding the distinction between genuine acting and simple personality projection, the argument reached a breaking point. He said that some actors over-relied on their innate charm rather than honing their acting abilities via practice and education. Even though he didn't specifically name Mr. T, everyone on the set knew who he was talking about. Mr. T's answer was straightforward as always. He emphasized that authenticity was more crucial than technique for developing memorable characters and that his performances resonated with audiences in ways that many professional actors admired. According to him, some actors became so engrossed in their techniques that they neglected to amuse the audience. Although the rest of the production was competently done, there was no affection between the two leads. While Mr. T stuck to his natural technique, Khan kept up his method acting approach. Although the end result demonstrated that both strategies were successful, the actors' personal relationship never fully recovered from their core dispute regarding performing technique. A pattern that characterized Mr. T's whole Hollywood career can be seen in his disputes with these 6 performers. When he felt disrespected, he was a person who didn't back down. Whether the challenge came from co-stars who attempted to restrict his artistic choices or from seasoned pros who questioned his qualifications. How do you feel about Mr. T's handling of these disputes in Hollywood? Was he correct to refuse to back down, or ought he to have been more open to making concessions? Tell us what you think of these intense backstage conflicts that molded one of the most iconic careers in entertainment.